Hey everybody, I want to talk real quick about A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. I've read two other Paul Tremblay books and talked about them on this channel, Paul Bearer's Club and Disappearance at Devil's Rock. I enjoyed both of them. I really like this author. I've been one of my favorite modern authors. This book, I think I like the least of all of them. I gave it like a 3.5, 4 stars. Still a good book. I do recommend it. And just so you know, I won't spoil anything for you here if you haven't read it. I still recommend it. I think this guy's a good author, but he has some pitfalls as an author that I think won't always work for people. If you know anything about this guy, you've probably heard he's very ambiguous. Ambiguous stories, ambiguous endings is kind of his thing. I would say that this is almost like Paul Tremblay light. Like this would be a good. I don't think he's an incredibly complicated author. I don't think his stories are like very hard to digest. It's not like you need to like read a bunch of him to get him, but they're not the easiest stories, right? You know, they're a little bit more like smaller scale stories that deal with like interpersonal issues and things like that, more character studies, deconstructing of tropes. I think people call him a horror author. I don't really think so. I think he's more a horror adjacent author. He, like I said, he takes tropes from really all sorts of genres, even like noir and stuff, and kind of deconstructs a very specific type of that. And in this example, it's like it kind of feels like he's taking cracks at all those possession movies from the 2000s, like I don't even remember, but you know, remember like probably like 2008, 2009. I was in high school at the time. There are all these possession movies, and they all sucked. And that's kind of what I think he was cracking at, a more dark subject matter. But this book is basically about this girl named Marjorie and her sister Mary. Mary is really the main character, but Marjorie is the girl afflicted, and she clearly has some sort of mental health issue. But her dad is a bit religious, and they think it might be something to do with a demon, with possession. So they agree to get the church involved, but it's a big thing, and eventually they agree to have this televised on a reality TV show. That's just on the back cover, so don't worry, I've not given anything away. And you can kind of imagine what it's going to talk about. And the thing with Paul Tremblay is like, when I started reading this, I'm like, he has a very particular writing style, which is not a bad thing. It's great to have a writing style as an author, but it's like I don't want to say formulaic because this was a nice book, but I kind of guessed how it was going to go, and I'm kind of right because his books are just there's something off, like in all of them, even the ones I like Disappearance at Devil's Rock, I really enjoyed, but there's just this like disconnected sort of feel sometimes. I don't know, it's very hard to explain. If you've read any of his books, let me know if you know how you feel. And maybe it is the ambiguity. Like he takes this idea that he has and just kind of explores it a little bit, but there's not a lot of plot there to keep things moving. I think that would be like just the biggest odd thing about his stories is how slow paced they can be. Not even slow paced, just like the plot just only sometimes it just doesn't move forward. It's just like a series of events. It's interesting. But the way it was told in this book, I thought it was interesting. There were like three, sometimes I felt like maybe even more perspectives that you were seeing all this from. So you were getting to see the story that is really two stories, one being the reality TV show and one being what's going on with the family in different perspectives, which was really an interesting way of kind of doing the ambiguity thing. Big pitfall in this book, I would say, that he's done in another book, just to watch out for. I find that sometimes he over explains himself. Like he's a very smart writer, clearly, and he will sometimes like borderline straight up tell you what he's talking about. It's like kind of pandering. And in this, he pretty much just like straight up summarizes chapters in a way. I don't know why he did that because he's done stuff like that in other books where it like ruined the end of the book a little bit. And in this one, it's really egregious. People really like this book. I think it's like his most popular book. I can see why. It is definitely straightforward for him, but it's a clever idea. I definitely recommend it. But it's just like after having read like two other of his books, it's like just the same thing kind of. It's an interesting way of attacking a subject and talking about it. That's why I liked this. But like sometimes his characters just feel a little flat, like they're just there to serve the plot. it's hard to explain because I really do like this author. I mean, I've gushed about him in other videos, but there's just like a flatness sometimes to the stories. And when you know, having read his books, that not much is going to come of it, and that a lot of the book is like taking place in the background off the page, um, it can be like you kind of know that there's not much of a payoff, right? Like if you've read his books, he doesn't do payoffs really. It's just kind of like things that happened. I will say that there's like I don't even know if I want to spoil that. Just the ending of this was a little more thrilling than usual, I shall say, for him. But that's a very light spoiler. But yeah, I totally recommend it. I do think it's a good read, and certainly this is not like pulpy garbage or anything. It's a nice, thought-provoking book. It's just like you read it, and I'm like, okay, that was good. So yeah, I would definitely say probably I'm looking. I might as well grab them for you folks. That would be third. Pallbearers Club would be second. This was a little bit of a dry book, but it was really, really, and he does very cool things with his writing. This was my favorite. It was very ambiguous. It had a lot of weird bullshit in it, but I just liked it. I don't know why. It had some stuff in it that always gets me. So he's a cool author. I just think he's very particular. I think he's the kind of guy where if I read him like in smaller doses, then I appreciate his style more. I think if I were to read like one or two of his books in a row, one book in a row, two, I read one book in a row, two books in a row at the very least, right? That's how that works. I would maybe get a little tired of it, but yeah, he's good, man. So, anyways, I hope that informs you or helps you with your decision if you're on the fence with this. I'd say it's definitely worth just at least checking out if you haven't read him. He has other books that I don't I like. I know there's Cabin at the End of the World, Survivor Song. The Beast You Are is coming out, his short story collection. You know what? That's what I'm actually going to say is that I find that his stories maybe would work better as short stories or novellas. I think that he stretches it out a little bit too much. Not like it doesn't feel like he's trying to stretch it out. It's just like the material he has to work with, which is really good, is almost not enough. Like it's just enough to fill a 300-page novel or something like that. So I'm really interested to read his book of short stories to see what he does with that format. I think that they're going to be really good. Anyways, everybody, yeah, keep reading, keep doing what you're doing. Have a great day and peace out.